Flight attendant throws out black teen's medicine. Then her father grounds the entire flight. Today, she was not just a passenger. She carried something crucial, something that the flight crew didn't fully understand. Her prescription medication rested safely in her bag, a lifeline she needed during the flight. She had shown it to her father earlier, and Marcus had double-checked that it was properly labeled and in accordance with airline rules. Still, a small worry lingered in her chest. Marcus sat next to her, a tall man with a calm but commanding presence. He was alert, scanning the cabin with careful eyes, taking note of the flight attendant's movements, the other passengers, and even the way the flight was progressing on the monitors in front of them. To him, this was more than just a regular trip. It was about keeping his daughter safe, protecting her from anything that could go wrong. He had flown before, and he knew that rules were often confusing, sometimes applied inconsistently. Today, he had made it clear that Jasmine's health came first, no matter what. The plane began to taxi, the engines growing louder, and Jasmine felt a flutter of nervousness. She always felt anxious during takeoff, but this time, the anxiety was layered. It wasn't just the flight. It was the thought of what could happen if her medicine was taken away. She had asthma, and this particular medication was crucial. Even a small delay in taking it could trigger a serious reaction. She breathed slowly, trying to calm herself, and Marcus reached over, squeezing her hand gently. "You're going to be fine," he whispered. "I'm right here. No one can take care of you better than me." One of them paused near a family a few rows ahead, adjusting a child's seatbelt, and Jasmine's eyes followed her carefully. She wondered if the crew would notice her medicine or even question it. She tried to remind herself that she had done everything right. Her medicine was labeled in its original container, with the prescription clearly visible. But deep down, she couldn't shake a sense of unease. As the plane lifted off the runway, the familiar rumble of engines vibrating through the cabin, Jasmine tried to distract herself. She opened a small book she had brought along and attempted to read, but her mind kept drifting. She glanced out the window, watching the city shrink below them, the streets and cars becoming tiny lines. The sensation of rising above the ground always felt magical to her, but today it did little to calm her nerves. Her thoughts returned to her medicine. She wondered if the crew would even allow her to use it if she needed it during the flight. About 30 minutes into the journey, as the plane reached cruising altitude, a flight attendant approached their row. Marcus noticed immediately, his eyes narrowing slightly. The attendant had a clipboard and a polite smile, but there was something in the way she moved that made him tense. Jasmine's heart began to pound. "Excuse me," the flight attendant said, her voice friendly but firm. "I need to check your bag, sir." "It's just routine," she replied. "We have to ensure all medications comply with airline regulations." "I understand, sir. However, I'll need to inspect it." She leaned slightly over Jasmine's bag. Jasmine felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. She opened her mouth to speak, but Marcus gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let me handle this," he said softly. He retrieved the bag and carefully opened it, showing the labeled prescription to the attendant. "This is her asthma medication," he explained. "She needs it to breathe. It's prescribed by a doctor, and it's completely legal to have it on board. All medications must be verified by the crew before use." She tried to speak again, but her voice caught in her throat. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and frustrated all at once. She had followed the rules, yet it seemed as though that was not enough. The flight attendant took the medicine from Marcus and placed it on the cart beside her. "I'll need to keep this until we land," she said. "It's for safety reasons." She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "Please, I need it. I can't go without it," she whispered, her voice breaking. Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked directly at the flight attendant, his voice calm but firm. "You cannot take this from her. She needs it. You are putting her life at risk." Marcus knelt beside her, speaking softly. "I've got you. Don't worry, baby. We'll fix this. No one can stop us from keeping you safe. This is about my daughter's health. If anything happens to her because you refuse to return her medication, it's on you, and I will make sure everyone knows what happened." His voice was steady, unwavering, and full of authority. She felt a small measure of hope that things would turn out okay. The flight attendant hesitated, glancing around nervously as if she were unsure how to respond. Marcus's calm determination seemed to make the situation more serious than she had anticipated. A murmur ran through the nearby passengers. Some nodded in approval, others looked uncomfortable, but the tension in the air was undeniable. Marcus leaned closer to Jasmine, whispering, "We're going to handle this. Just stay calm. I won't let anything happen to you." She felt her father's hand on hers, grounding her, and for the first time since the flight had begun, she felt a sense of safety. She knew the next few moments would be crucial, and she braced herself for the conversation that would decide whether she could take her medicine or not. The plane continued its steady hum, cruising above the clouds, unaware of the small storm brewing within the cabin. Passengers read books, checked phones, and sipped drinks, but Jasmine and Marcus were caught in a tense standoff that would soon change the tone of the flight entirely. The tension in the cabin thickened as the flight attendant held Jasmine's medication on the cart. Marcus's gaze never left her, and Jasmine clutched his hand tightly, her small fingers trembling. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest. Every second felt longer than the last, and the soft hum of the airplane engine seemed to echo her anxiety. Passengers nearby whispered among themselves, some glancing curiously, others with obvious concern. The atmosphere felt heavy, like the entire plane was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus straightened his posture and took a deep breath. He knew that raising his voice could escalate the situation, but he also knew that calm and firm words carried more power. "Ma'am," he began, his voice steady but commanding, "my daughter cannot go without this medicine. It is essential for her health. If anything happens to her, it could be very serious. I need you to return it to her immediately." He leaned closer to her, his voice firm but respectful. "I understand rules. I respect rules. But you must understand something even more important. My daughter's life comes before any policy. You cannot take this risk. You cannot endanger her just to follow a rule that does not make sense in this situation." She admired his confidence and his ability to stay calm, but she also felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Tears welled up in her eyes again, and she whispered, "Dad, please. I will not let anything happen to you." Marcus noticed this but did not let it distract him. He knew that the focus needed to remain on Jasmine and her safety. "You need to understand," Marcus continued, his voice unwavering, "this is a medical necessity. This is not a choice. She needs this medication. If you refuse to return it and something happens, it will not be a simple mistake. Lives are at stake. I need you to return her medication right now. We're in this together, baby. Don't worry." The flight attendant, sensing that the situation was becoming tense and that other passengers were noticing, straightened up. She glanced at Marcus, then back at Jasmine. "Sir," she said, her voice slightly firmer, "please understand I am only following instructions. I am not allowed to make exceptions without approval from the captain." Marcus's firmness, combined with the growing attention from other passengers, seemed to make her realize that this was no ordinary disagreement. She nodded slowly and said, "I will inform the captain." He did not move from his position, standing protectively in front of her. He could feel the tension in the cabin, the silent attention of the other passengers, and he knew that he had to remain calm and in control. Within a few minutes, the flight attendant returned, accompanied by another crew member. Marcus could see the slight worry in their expressions. The second attendant spoke quietly. "The captain will need to review the situation before any decisions are made. Everything is going to be okay. I will not let anything happen to you." He spoke with clarity, precision, and authority, leaving little room for doubt. The cabin was quiet now. Passengers had stopped their conversations and were watching the interaction unfold. Some whispered quietly among themselves, expressing support for Marcus and concern for Jasmine. The atmosphere was tense but focused. Everyone seemed to understand that this was more than just a routine conflict. It was about a young girl's health and safety. After several minutes, the flight attendant returned again, this time accompanied by the captain himself. Marcus immediately stood and addressed him politely but firmly. "Captain, thank you for coming. My daughter has a medical condition, and her medication has been taken by your crew. She needs it immediately. I need your approval to return it to her." The captain consulted briefly with the crew, then turned back to Marcus. "I understand the situation," he said. "We will return the medication to your daughter. Thank you for bringing this to our attention." Marcus handed her the medication carefully and she clutched it to her chest, feeling safe again. "See," Marcus whispered gently, "everything is okay now. You're safe." She looked around the cabin and noticed that some passengers were smiling at her and Marcus, their support evident. Others were still watching quietly, perhaps reflecting on what had just happened. The flight continued smoothly after that. Jasmine felt a sense of security she had not felt since boarding the plane. She knew that her father had fought for her, that he had not allowed anyone to compromise her safety. She held the medication close, taking deep breaths, and focused on calming herself for the remainder of the journey. Marcus remained alert, keeping an eye on the crew and the other passengers, but he also allowed himself a small moment of relief. He knew that the immediate danger was over, that Jasmine was safe, but he also knew that this experience would stay with them both for a long time. It was a reminder of how quickly situations could become serious and how important it was to speak up for those you love. As the plane flew above the clouds, Jasmine leaned against her father, feeling safe and comforted. She had faced fear, anxiety, and uncertainty, but she had also seen the power of advocacy, determination, and love. Marcus's firm stance had protected her, and in that moment she felt a sense of gratitude and admiration that words could not fully express. The rest of the flight passed without incident. Jasmine took her medication as needed, and Marcus remained vigilant but calm. Passengers returned to their own activities, and the tension in the cabin gradually faded. Jasmine felt a sense of normalcy returning, but she also knew that this experience would stay with her forever, a reminder of the importance of speaking up, of standing firm, and of the unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter. The flight had resumed, but the tension lingered like a shadow over the cabin. Marcus remained vigilant, his eyes scanning the flight attendants and the other passengers, making sure that Jasmine was safe and comfortable. Jasmine sat quietly beside him, holding her medication tightly in her hands. The relief she had felt moments earlier was tempered by the memory of what had just happened. She couldn't help but think about how easily a small mistake or misunderstanding could have put her life at risk. Marcus, however, had no intention of letting the situation end quietly. He knew that what had happened was more than just a minor error. It was a reflection of deeper issues. Policies that ignored real-life emergencies, the assumptions made about passengers, and the way his daughter had been treated, all of it demanded attention. He realized that by speaking up now, he could not only protect Jasmine but also prevent others from experiencing the same stress and danger. He turned slightly in his seat and whispered to Jasmine, "We need to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else, but first we make sure you're okay." Jasmine nodded, trusting her father completely. She could feel his determination radiating from him, giving her strength even in the lingering shadows of fear. Marcus called the flight attendant over again. She approached cautiously, clearly aware that the situation was far from over. Marcus's tone was calm but firm. "I appreciate your cooperation earlier," he said. "But this incident highlights a serious problem. Policies exist for safety, but they must also take real medical needs into account. I want the captain and the airline management to know exactly what happened here." My daughter's health should not be treated like a routine check. This is serious, and I will make sure the airline knows the potential consequences of mishandling such situations. That's not fair. Others looked on silently, curious and perhaps a little concerned about the growing tension. Marcus knew that the situation was becoming more public, and he understood the importance of keeping control and setting a proper example. His calm authority contrasted sharply with the uncertainty in the crew's eyes, and it drew attention. Within minutes, the captain returned to the area near Marcus and Jasmine. He looked serious, clearly aware of the weight of the situation. "Sir, I've been briefed on what happened," the captain said. "I understand your concerns and I appreciate your patience. What would you like us to do next?" "That means her medical condition must be respected, her medication accessible, and any future incidents like this must be prevented. This is not just about one flight. It's about ensuring that passengers with real medical needs are treated fairly and safely. We'll also document this formally with the airline." Marcus realized that this incident could extend beyond the cabin into public awareness. He knew that this could be a moment to highlight the importance of speaking up for one's rights. Feeling that it was the right moment, Marcus stood slightly, addressing not just the flight crew but also the passengers around him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice calm but commanding, "my daughter was almost put at risk because of a misunderstanding and strict adherence to rules without considering real-life emergencies. This should never happen to anyone. Please, let's make sure that situations like this are recognized and handled with care and common sense." A few people were still recording the conversation, and Marcus did not object. He understood that social awareness could amplify the lesson being taught. The cabin felt different now. There was a subtle shift in energy, a recognition that this was more than a routine flight. Marcus noticed a few passengers whispering among themselves, perhaps discussing how they or their families might be affected by similar situations. He realized that his insistence on speaking up could have a ripple effect, helping others to advocate for themselves in the future. Jasmine, sitting beside him, felt a sense of pride she had never experienced before. Her father was not only protecting her in the moment, but also standing up for what was right, demonstrating courage and responsibility. She squeezed his hand tightly, silently thanking him for his strength and determination. The flight attendants moved around the cabin with a renewed awareness of the passengers' attention. Marcus noticed that their expressions had changed. There was now a hint of respect mixed with caution. They understood that this was no longer just about enforcing rules. It was about human lives and the need to approach situations with empathy and judgment. As the flight continued, Marcus remained proactive. He took the opportunity to speak quietly with a few passengers who approached him, offering words of support. They expressed concern over how such situations could escalate and praised Marcus for his calm and effective advocacy. Marcus listened patiently, acknowledging their concerns, and reminded them of the importance of being prepared and informed about medical needs during travel. Meanwhile, Jasmine began to relax slightly, feeling secure in her father's presence. She took small, steady breaths, focusing on the reassurance she felt from him. She realized how critical it was to communicate openly about her health needs and to trust the adults who were advocating for her. This experience, though stressful, had taught her valuable lessons about courage, advocacy, and the importance of standing firm when faced with unfair treatment. As the hours passed, Marcus continued to monitor the situation without causing additional tension. He spoke privately with the flight attendants when needed, ensuring that they understood the seriousness of the matter. He emphasized the importance of awareness, empathy, and proper handling of passengers with medical conditions. His calm but assertive approach seemed to resonate with the crew, who began treating Jasmine and her needs with greater care and attention. Several passengers approached Marcus quietly, expressing their gratitude for his actions. One mother holding a small child said, Thank you for speaking up. I have a son with similar needs. Your courage has made me feel more confident about advocating for him in the future." Marcus nodded, appreciating their words and the connection formed through shared experience. He realized that his actions were having a broader impact, extending beyond his own family and flight experience. As the flight approached its final destination, Marcus took a moment to reflect. The incident had been stressful, frightening even, but it had also demonstrated the power of calm determination, clear communication, and advocacy. He had protected Jasmine, educated the flight crew, and engaged passengers in a meaningful dialogue about safety and empathy. Jasmine, holding her medication safely, leaned against her father. She felt a deep sense of relief and pride. Her father had not only ensured her safety, but had also shown her the importance of standing up for oneself and others. She realized that advocacy was not just about confrontation. It was about clarity, calmness, and unwavering commitment to what is right. As the plane landed smoothly, Marcus prepared to disembark, ensuring that Jasmine had everything she needed. The passengers around them offered nods, smiles, and quiet words of acknowledgement. Some had recorded the event, capturing a story of courage and advocacy that could inspire others. Marcus remained composed, knowing that the lesson extended beyond the flight, beyond the airline, and into a broader conversation about safety, fairness, and respect. The experience had left its mark. Marcus understood that future challenges might arise, but he also knew that facing them with patience, determination, and clarity could make a significant difference. Jasmine felt reassured, not just by the safety of her medication, but by the knowledge that her father would always advocate for her, no matter the circumstances. The airplane touched down smoothly on the runway, and a wave of relief swept over Jasmine. She held her medication tightly, feeling safer than she had in hours. The flight attendants moved efficiently to guide passengers toward the exit, but Marcus stayed close to Jasmine, ensuring she had everything she needed. The ordeal of the flight was not over entirely, though the immediate danger had passed. He knew that the impact of what had happened would extend far beyond this single journey. As passengers began gathering their belongings, whispers and quiet conversations filled the cabin. Some had recorded the confrontation, and Marcus noticed that the event was being shared discreetly among other passengers. While the situation had been tense, it had also created a moment of awareness, a reminder that rules alone should never overshadow compassion and safety. Marcus took a deep breath and helped Jasmine with her bag. "We're almost done, baby. Just a few more steps," he said softly. Jasmine nodded, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and gratitude. She leaned slightly against her father, still holding her medication. She had never been through anything like this before, and the experience had left her with a mix of fear, pride, and a new understanding of how important it was to communicate her needs. As they reached the airplane door, the captain came forward once more. He offered a polite nod toward Marcus and Jasmine. "Sir, I want to thank you for your patience and for calmly explaining the situation. We will make sure this is documented, and your feedback will be used to prevent similar incidents in the future. That is the most important lesson here. You showed courage and patience." Jasmine looked around, taking in the busy airport with renewed appreciation for safety and support. She felt grateful not only for her father but also for the passengers who had quietly supported them throughout the ordeal. As they walked toward the baggage claim, Marcus spoke gently to Jasmine. "You know, baby, what happened today was serious. But it also shows that when we stay calm, speak clearly, and advocate for what's right, we can make a difference. You saw that firsthand. And today, we also reminded people that safety and compassion should come first, no matter what rules say." Marcus realized that even small actions, like standing up calmly and firmly for what is right, could influence others. Once they collected their belongings, Marcus guided Jasmine toward the exit. Outside, the sun was shining brightly, and the air smelled of freedom and relief. Jasmine took a deep breath, enjoying the simple pleasure of being on solid ground again. The tension that had gripped her during the flight began to fade, replaced by a sense of safety and comfort. As they made their way to the parking area, Marcus reflected on the entire experience. He thought about how easily fear and misunderstanding could escalate, and how important it was to remain calm, assertive, and clear. He realized that advocacy required patience, courage, and clarity. Today, he had protected Jasmine, ensured her needs were met, and also set an example for others. Jasmine, walking beside him, felt a mixture of exhaustion and empowerment. She had witnessed her father handle a tense, high-stakes situation with confidence and care. She knew that she could rely on him, and she also understood the importance of speaking up for herself in a respectful but firm way. The experience had been frightening, but it had also been instructive, a lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her life. As they reached their car, Marcus helped Jasmine into the seatbelt, double-checking that her bag and medication were secure. She smiled up at him, and he smiled back, a silent acknowledgement of the bond strengthened by the ordeal they had just faced together. Driving away from the airport, Marcus kept the car quiet at first, allowing Jasmine to settle and reflect. "Dad," she said softly, breaking the silence, "I've never seen anyone handle a situation like that. You were calm, strong, and clear. You didn't let fear take over. That's just as important. Together, we made sure everything was handled properly." People had seen how important it was to approach emergencies with empathy and careful judgment, and she felt proud to have been a part of that lesson. As they drove through the city, Marcus continued to speak softly to Jasmine, helping her process the experience. "Remember, baby, it's not always easy to stand up for what's right, but it's always worth it. Today, we made sure that rules didn't endanger anyone. We reminded people that compassion, awareness, and courage are just as important as regulations." She realized that advocating for oneself and others was a skill she would need in life, and she was grateful to have learned it firsthand, guided by her father's example. By the time they reached home, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm, golden glow over the neighborhood. Jasmine felt a sense of calm and relief, knowing that she was safe and that her medication was secure. She hugged her father tightly, feeling a mixture of gratitude, love, and admiration. Marcus hugged her back firmly. "You're safe now, Jasmine. That's all that matters. And I hope you remember this lesson. Always speak up for what is right, always stay calm, and always trust the people who care about you." She knew that the flight had been challenging, frightening even, but it had also been empowering. She had seen firsthand how courage, patience, and determination could make a real difference. That evening, as they settled at home, Marcus and Jasmine reflected on the day. Jasmine carefully placed her medication on the table beside her, a small but powerful reminder of the importance of preparedness and vigilance. Marcus made a note to follow up with the airline, ensuring that the incident would be properly documented and that their experience could help improve policies for future passengers. Jasmine felt a sense of closure and calm. She knew that the day's events would remain in her memory, not as a source of fear, but as a lesson in advocacy, courage, and protection. She realized that even difficult experiences could be transformed into meaningful learning opportunities, and she felt grateful for the guidance and love of her father. Marcus, looking at Jasmine, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had protected his daughter, ensured her safety, and demonstrated the power of calm, firm advocacy. He knew that life would continue to present challenges, but he also knew that with patience, courage, and clarity, they could face anything together. As night fell, the house grew quiet. Jasmine lay in bed, thinking about the flight, the passengers, and her father's unwavering support. She felt a profound sense of safety and gratitude. She knew that the lessons she had learned today would stay with her forever, a reminder of the importance of speaking up, standing firm, and protecting those we love. Marcus, sitting quietly in the living room, reflected on the day. He realized that small actions could have a ripple effect, influencing not just those directly involved, but also others who witnessed the events. By standing firm and advocating for Jasmine, he had created a story of courage and awareness that would reach beyond the walls of the airplane cabin. In the days that followed, news of the incident spread on social media, shared by passengers who had recorded parts of the confrontation. Marcus and Jasmine's story became a quiet reminder of the importance of vigilance, advocacy, and empathy. People discussed it, learned from it, and reflected on how to handle similar situations in their own lives. For Jasmine, the experience became a defining moment. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and misunderstanding, yet she had also witnessed courage, care, and decisive action. She understood the value of speaking up, trusting those who protect you, and standing firm in the face of adversity. And for Marcus, the day reinforced the principles he had always believed in: protection, advocacy, and the unwavering responsibility of a parent. He had safeguarded his daughter, taught her valuable lessons, and left an impression on others that extended far beyond the flight itself. The flight, the confrontation, and the advocacy had ended, but the impact remained, a lasting reminder that calm determination, clear communication, and love could overcome fear, misunderstanding, and challenges. Together, Marcus and Jasmine had turned a potentially frightening ordeal into a story of courage, awareness, and hope.